Hello and welcome back to They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. And my guest today it's really cool because I've got a digital marketer, which kind of does a disservice to his total level of expertise. So let's go with a full stack marketer, an entrepreneur himself who has worked with a lot of bigger firms. So brings some cool expertise that maybe you haven't heard from some of the digital marketers out there who predominantly work with firms that maybe are in their first few $1 million per year in revenue. So I'm really excited to get his expertise on several things, including just what he is doing as an entrepreneur himself, because I think he's an example of someone who you're going to go, oh, totally relatable human being who also runs this incredible company. And anytime we have that type of story, I think it's important to highlight the person behind it all. So my guest today is Joe Giovannoli, the founder and managing partner of 9Sale. Joe, welcome to the show.
Charlie, thanks for having me, man. Excited about this.
Me too. All right, so let's get into it. What's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
So I have not gone to law school, but I've worked with enough attorneys over the years to ascertain that they don't teach how to properly manage and leverage the press as an attorney and as a law firm. Maximize your visibility, maximize your subject matter expertise. Can't say the word expert as an attorney, but we could say it here. But you can, maximize your subject matter expertise. And I think that that's the one thing they really don't teach in law school.
Okay, definitely not something that they talk about, because it feels like a lot of times they're trying to churn out associates who are supposed to be neither seen nor heard. They're just supposed to achieve their billable hours, right? But we're talking to an audience of people who were audacious and insane enough to go, you know what, I'm going to plant my flag and claim my place. And in some cases, after you've planted that flag and claimed your place, you have these opportunities to talk to the media, whether it's earned media or an attempt at connecting with the media. I'm curious from your perspective, like a couple of core things when it comes to dealing with the media that you see lacking for most law firm owners.
Well, you said something really interesting, and I want to hit that first, which is the earned media, right? So a lot of law firms, especially in the smaller segment, right? But as you go more upstream, they're used to more of the earned media. But the smaller firms, when they think of media or getting press, a lot of times there's this thought of like, oh, it's pay to play, right? I need to pay something to get exposure. And as an attorney and as somebody that has an expertise within a specific market, you are sought after, right? So leveraging the folks that are reaching out to you is really important, right? But then also having the team around you to kind of look for other opportunities that you can leverage. Your internal, your paralegals, your associates, they can be looking for opportunities for folks to get mentioned in the press about something that's timely, right? There's plenty of things. Think of the FTC coming out when we recorded this, right? The FTC a few weeks ago came out with the non-compete rules and essentially making them unenforceable, right? So right there, a really good opportunity for any corporate lawyer to get out there and start commenting on what these rules mean and what the far-reaching implications are, right? So I wanted to address the paid versus earned, right? Where earned is either somebody's reaching out to you or you're not having to pay anything to make this happen. But, as a whole, right, media is something that you can really leverage as a business owner, no matter really what industry you're in, but as a business owner to get the exposure in the key markets, either that you're trying to establish a really strong market share grab, or perhaps one that you're trying to get into, right? Media doesn't have to be expensive. And so if you're being frugal and you're being smart about how you're spending your time and who you're connecting with, it could really be an accelerator tool.
Okay. So that when a lot of firm owners first encounter the idea of doing research, finding stories to comment on, a lot of times it comes out of the newsjacking space. And it's because they finally got around to reading Ryan Holiday's book, Trust Me, I'm Lying, where he talks about the service Haro, Help a Reporter Out. I remember that was huge whenever that got published, right? My timeline is off these days, but maybe it was like somewhere between 2014 to 2016, perhaps, before he started doing all the Stoicism stuff. It kind of seems like it fell by the wayside for a while because people were assuming that sort of pay to play model exists, but you're bringing back, or you're suggesting what sounds like that old newsjacking model. I'm curious from a practical point of view, like if you have someone finding some of these stories, you mentioned you could have some in-house people. It doesn't have to be complicated. What should firm owners be doing with these things when they actually find them?
Yeah, so great question. And two parts to that. First one, I'll answer you directly. Really looking to reach out to and make relationships with the journalists that are talking about topics within their center of expertise, right? So again, I'm going to go with a corporate attorney for a second. Looking for those journalists that are constantly covering topics and stories around anything corporate or business law related, something that's going to have a reaching implication and application to their target market. That's right out of the gate. That's what they should be doing. And that could be something as simple as having their assistant or having a paralegal or an associate reach out to the journalist and set up a quick one-on-one coffee chat or conversation, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about greasing those wheels. The other thing, and this is going to be a kind of a big tip that I'm surprised we're getting into so early, but make sure that when you reach out to a journalist or you talk to a journalist, you are not going in asking them for anything. You know, the first couple of times you should be providing them with value without expecting them to ask you to be quoted or anything like that. So coming in with a fresh perspective on a specific ruling that just happened or a specific law that just passed, and not doing it in an official capacity, right? Just kind of getting into this conversation because it triggers a light bulb for them as to a topic they might be able to cover. And they may not feel comfortable asking you to be that quote right away, but you're starting to establish a relationship. This is very much a relationship game, just like almost every attorney in existence will build a relationship with their client. You need to build a relationship with these journalists as if they're your client. So, and vice versa, right? So it's about trust, and you may not hit on the first at bat, but they will come back to you. And that's what we found time and time again, is establishing those relationships is really important. So having somebody internally, or even blocking an hour a week just to do some of your own journalist outreach to connect with people, I think that that's really important. The other side of that, though, is that law firms, again, they don't typically market themselves well, right? So you also want to make sure that you have a one pager about who you are and who your firm is. That's not fluffy and like with tons of, forgive me, crap in it. You know, just get to the point. Who's the firm? What does the firm do? Who am I? What do I do? And here are some of the areas of expertise that I have. And this could be, okay, a couple of cases that you've been part of. Fine, don't make it too much about that. But what are areas that you consult on regularly with your clients, and what are things that you could possibly be useful to them for? Because those are the things that somebody's going to be able to draw from, be like, oh, I have somebody in my Rolodex that I can call for a quote, right? So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's, there's so many intricacies to it, and a small team, that's the easiest way that you can start to actually leverage media.
Long-winded answers are my love language. So we're good, Joe. So, because to me, that just means you did there provide a lot of context and ability to implement, which actually leads me into a follow-up question, which is, okay, I'm thinking about some type of story related to my practice area, whether it's local, national, regional, etc. And now I've heard Joe say, reach out to lawyers. So like, am I sliding into their DMs? Am I emailing them? Do I go on to prweb.com, hello 2013, and do a press release through there and hope that the agency picks it up? Like, how do I actually do that?
Yeah, so a lot of times, just by doing some quick Googling, you can, once you found a journalist's name or who wrote a certain set of articles, you could do some Googling around and get their contact details. And so it's not overly difficult to find that. We have tools internally that we can leverage to kind of get that information. And frankly, the journalists, there's a little bit of a wall between them because they don't want to get inundated, but at the same time, they're fairly accessible, right? So simple Google searches can really accomplish that. But you also have, you mentioned Help a Reporter Out, Harrow. There are other tools out there that you can leverage online to kind of see what people are asking about, what topics they're asking about. So, it's just a matter of doing a simple Google search to find the contact information. And maybe out of every 10, maybe you'll only find 7 or 8 contact details, but you really That's more than enough to try to establish a relationship and do some outreach. Just think about it as business development, right? It's really, you're just developing business for yourself. And frankly, getting your name in the press is good for social media posting. It's good for you to put on your website, but eventually somebody may see that you've been quoted, and they may even reach out to you about a potential, case or challenge they're facing.
That's right. So if I'm reaching out to them, I'm assuming a bad choice, but maybe I'm wrong. I shouldn't even assume. I do know some firm owners who in the past, when they reach out, they sort of try and triple stack or double stack this whole newsjacking concept. And they've produced a video about the topic. And then they're reaching out to a reporter and saying, hey, I did a video about this. Good or bad way to go about things?
I think it depends, right? If you're trying to do that with like Fox, the New York Times, Washington Post, something like that, it's probably not going to work. They're probably not even going to give it the time of day.
Right.
And you're talking about newsjacking, and I think part of what I'm talking about would definitely fall under that category. But I think there's also some of this proactiveness about not necessarily jacking headlines, but focusing on some of the topics that are going to either going to be upcoming or that are topics that are always evergreen and always talked about. I think that that's really important to kind of differentiate, that it doesn't always have to be like your forgiveness, but you're not chasing the ambulance of the news, right? Like you're very much trying to find topics that you can really add value to and not just shoot at everything that you can find. I see firms all the time, especially when we're going into a prospect call, and I'll do a bunch of research to see where their name pops up or some of their attorneys pop up. And it's amazing the stuff that they've been quoted in. And I'm like, this is so off brand. Like, why are you answering this question? Because I'll get in and I'll ask pointed questions to say, like, tell me about this piece of press that's talking about how to run a consultancy. Like, do you work directly with consultants? Is your main client like consulting companies? And they're like, oh no, we don't do any of that. It's like, so why did you quote on that? Right. So,
because mom can cut it out of the newspaper and put it on the refrigerator.
Right. Or we can throw it in our list of press that we received. Right. And,
that's right.
Hey, listen, there's a strategy to that too. If you want a long page of a bunch of logos, but I'd rather spend less time on less pieces of press that are going to be more useful and more impactful for the people I'm trying to do business with.
Okay, so that starts to snowball or head over in the direction of paid media. So this is sometimes a controversial strategy, but you see this happen with certain PR agencies that are designed as a pay-to-play. Hey, you're going to be featured on this like local news early morning Sunday talk show thing. We're going to pre-film the segment 8 weeks before it's going to show up there. You get to say that you are on ABC 7, which is one of your local stations, with something where you spent 3 minutes talking about your kind of general practice area as filler TV. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in that specific situation, it's not really useful, right? So early morning segment, not a huge, unless in this case, like you have folks that you're trying to work with that are they're the ones watching the news at that time. You can get some good social media clips out of it. Maybe you can leverage it in some of that, but I don't think people are going to be like, whoa, these people were on the early show on 7 a.m., for ABC 7. I'm going to work with them, right? So yeah. I don't really love that, and I don't think that's a great use of funds. But I do also feel that paid media can and is good in certain situations, right? So let's just say, for instance, that a company is going after all of the companies on the Inc. or a law firm's going after all the companies on an Inc. 5000 list, right?
Sure.
Every single one of those companies could be a valid client for whatever it is, right? So placing in a couple of the issues in the Inc. 5000, paying to place, a written content, that could be great, right? Because the folks that, we talked about cutting it out so mom could put it on the fridge, like the Inc. 5000 companies are keeping copies of that magazine. They're reading the whole thing. They're looking at everything, right? So paid media can be good. The other thing that's become a really frowned upon practice, but unfortunately it happens with a lot of the really great websites, is that you have this editorial fee that you'll pay where you're getting a guest blog published. They're not charging you to post on there, but what they're doing is they're calling it an editorial fee, and that makes it a little bit pay to play. And we run into
Right.
that all the time. We find amazing sources that we could really get our clients, quoted in, or we could provide them a whole piece of content that they'll publish. And sometimes we have to pay a $50-$60 fee in order to get them to edit it to make sure that it meets the guidelines, which editing literally just means copying and pasting it into the back of their WordPress website and hitting submit. So, so paid can get a bad rap. You want earned. Earned is fantastic. Earned is going to get you the wheels that you need, but paid can, in certain applications, can really move the needle and move the ball forward.
Okay, so taking that paid route, I mean, look, Nine Sale is not a standalone press company. You handle large scale lead generation overall for law firms. I'm really curious, when people come to you, what are you looking at in their marketing plan to sort of say, like, okay, we want to be stacking together these particular campaign styles or media formats to maximize the benefit for clients?
Yeah, so we have kind of coined this term that we've been using more and more in our current website being under development. You'll see this more prominently, but we take a digital rainmaking approach, right? Which is like thinking about how we would want an attorney to show up online and show up when they're trying to prospect certain people. What are those people interested in? What do they need to be able to talk about? And what's going to really grab their attention? And then we kind of work backwards off of that, right? So we are working press into everything that we're doing, because building domain authority, right? That's been a buzzword that people throw around a lot. We could just call it authority. Google has EEAT, which is experience, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, and I'm blanking because it's it's EEAT now. It's hold on, I gotta get this right.
Expertise, authority, trust. Yep.
Yeah, and I think experience is the other one for the website. That's what it is. Sorry, they keep throwing letters on that.
I know. It's like, look, I've heard people who are well-respected web pros who still call it Google My Business, even though it's Google Business Profile. Like, I mean, people need to kind of loosen up on some of the terms.
Yes, I agree. But as I'm saying, right, like, we're leveraging press in what we're doing there because we're looking at it as a cog in the wheel of the overall strategy. One of the biggest things that we hear all the time from our clients is that the biggest way that we get business is through word of mouth. If I had $1 every time, Charlie, I literally wouldn't have to work ever again.
I know.
But, and that's great, right? But there's a statistic, and I was literally just looking this up before to make sure that the stat was right. And if you forgive me for 1 second, I want to recite it.
Please, by all means.
87% of legal marketing service consumers do a search on Google before they make a final decision on who they're working with, right? What does that tell you? That means that is a part of the decision-making process that you need to own. So forget about just being found for the generic, whatever, elder law attorney near me, or whatever terms people associate with this, right? Think about how when somebody is searching for your attorney's name or for the firm's name, how the firm shows up. Wouldn't you want some control over what shows up on that? And wouldn't it be awesome if you had your firm's website and then 7 to 10 things right below it that are all awesome press from awesome publications that you've been quoted in, right? So it's a little bit about perception, right? And that's a lot of what we're building, is that the full and our best clients are the ones that understand that, like, we're going to generate leads for you, but we're also going to be part of your decision-making process when somebody's looking to hire you. And you can't necessarily attribute a lead to that, but it certainly gets its credit because it's certainly a big part of why they're actually making a decision to go with you, because they have validated what they see. And press does that, as well as, SEO. Anytime, if let's say that they got an introduction to you and they're looking for a corporate lawyer and they just happen to search for corporate lawyer NYC, and oh my gosh, your firm just showed up there. Validation point, right? Like, it's again, didn't generate the lead, but it certainly led to a reason why they decided to work with you. So, we really help our firms holistically to look at that. And it's all about validation points, because lead gen's great. And we do that day in and day out. And we do really well with that. But we can't even begin to quantify the amount of times that we've helped in the referral, the word of mouth part of the process too.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a huge and helpful insight. And even now I'm thinking about how many professionals I've looked up by name, and the main things that you see are, you'll see, say, the law firm or the business website. And then the next result that has their direct name in it is usually some type of social media profile, right? And then all of a sudden I'm seeing your Instagram that has 308 followers, as opposed to being able to see like, oh, you were quoted in such and such news organization, which there are some attorneys, like when you look up, you know, maybe not always, I won't mention names now because I was about to say there are some attorneys when you look them up, maybe you don't always love the results they're showing up for you.
Right.
But who, when you look for them, you see like, you know, a page, and I guess saying a page in the world of endless scroll on Google is a little bit of a misnomer, but you see, you know, 5 to 10 results that are them being quoted in news stories, maybe even a video of an interview that they did. So that's huge. So when you're starting to put together some of these campaigns, when you're starting to work with a client, I mean, look, every single person, every single law firm owner, I shouldn't say every single, right? That's absolute. A lot of law firm owners would love if they could all of a sudden have these results in the next 30 days, right? So realistically, like, what's the type of work that goes into this, and what is the real timeline on something like this?
So to be clear, you're asking specifically around press, right?
Around press, around shifting the way that your search results could potentially show up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really, it hate this, but it depends, right? It depends on like what you're
on this show, Joe. People are allowed to say it depends, and not get any flack for it, because usually it depends.
Yeah. Well, so it depends on where you're starting from, right? Like, are you fighting negative press currently? Are you, do you have any active profiles, or have you ever been quoted anywhere, right? Like, these are all factors that are going to be important. Timeliness and time relative to when the searcher's doing the search in terms of a publication, that matters. That's important. But I tell all of my clients, I say, this is all a long haul strategy, right? Like, you know, paid search in most cases, that's could be the quick hit, the quick wins, that, you know, those are the things that are instant gratification. If you're looking for instant gratification, the press and the SEO stuff is definitely not your way to go. And I ask you to find it within you to consider SEO and press, because that's the stuff that's going to win you in the long run. And your website will start to become your hardest working rainmaker in the firm. That aside, 6 to 12 months is like the bare minimum that we tell them, which is a pretty SEO standard response. But, you know, depending on the nichiness of the practice, you know, it could take a while to build certain unique relationships. Now, most of our clients within the first month or two will get at least 1 to 2 placements that are like really ones that they're excited about and proud of, right? But you know, it can take a lot of time to get that. Now, that being said, we have some clients that we've been working with on the SEO side for the last 5+ years. You know, they are the first person that the journalist reaches out to say, hey, would you have any interest in quoting on one of these 3 topics I'm working on? Yeah. And, you know, that takes a long time to build out. But when it does, like, we're, you know, with them, we're probably hitting a backlink to 2 backlinks a month, just and really high quality, you know, placements for them. And that's just on this, you know, one publication. And it's also, I want to debunk this. It's not bad to have yourself mentioned on the same site multiple times. You know, people are always like, oh, you've gotten what you can get out of this. And that's not necessarily true, because that you could be quoting on different topics. It could be at different time frames. And we've heard people come to us a lot and say like, oh, well, you know, how many publications are you going to get us on? And it's like, hey, that's one, is really hard to say. But 2, you know, you want to be quoted in the right places at the right time, because you never know which article is going to take off like a rocket ship. And you want to make sure that you are kind of spreading that wealth and spreading that net to capture everything that you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, and this whole press thing is definitely, it's so funny how, Joe, it comes across as incredibly simple and incredibly complicated at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. And it appears to me, and based on what you're saying, a lot of it comes down to the same thing that SEO comes down to, the same thing that referral marketing comes down to, which is a level of consistency. Mm-hmm. And really staying in the game. So when you have a firm owner who gets started on something like this, why aren't more firm owners sticking with it, and how could they stick with it better?
So it all starts with content. right? So
Yeah.
getting yourself into a rhythm of putting out content on a semi-regular basis. And what does that mean? It's different for different people, but if you have a small to mid-sized firm, you should be writing yourself, at least once a week, you should be writing at least one piece of content. I think that that's really important. That's the kind of stuff that will also draw some attention because you will start to naturally perform for certain keywords and if you have a constant flow of content, whether it's on your LinkedIn, whether it's on your blog, if you have a constant flow of content, it helps to paint you as a subject matter expert. But it truly is about consistency. Like you need to have a cadence and a process that you're following, and it's just, again, I'm going to keep relating it back to business development because lawyers talk business development really well.
Yeah.
If you hit up a prospect and then you wait 3 months and then you try to hit them up again and then you wait 3 months, like you're never going to get anywhere. They don't even know who you are. You may not have even hit their inbox. So you need to be kind of consistent with being out there and kind of trying to drum up the press business, if you will. But it's all about consistency, and again, it starts with, I love that the Navy commander that made the make your bed speech at the graduation. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, right? It starts with making your bed. You've accomplished the first task of the day. Like, think of it from that perspective, right? Like most people do make their bed, not everybody, but most people make their bed every morning, right? It's like one of the first tasks that they do. Think of this as something that you have to do every week in order to kind of keep that machine churning. Because the second that you do, the presses grind to a halt, right? Like in terms of your business, it grinds to a halt. So consistency is key.
Yeah. On a completely different note, I mean, related to SEO, but I have to ask someone who works at like the scale that you do, the invasion of AI, generative AI, the effect of AI on, is it SGE, search generative experience right now that Google has. Where do you see this going? Because I'll tell you kind of from the inside, there are a lot of firm owners who right now are really anxious about investing in SEO because they hear about AI's effect on it. And they're worried about like investing in SEO and having that investment that the work being done today not really paying off, 12 months from now. How are you all addressing this next shift in Google?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I always like to say, and we actually just talked about this on our webinar, but I like to preface by saying that I believe that Google has been deploying some kind of large language model within their optimization of their algorithm for a lot longer than ChatGPT has been a buzzword that people are using, right? So I want to throw that out there, that I think that this is not as new to Google as people are fearing. The other thing that we're seeing is that in most cases, the experience that you're getting out of AI from Google it's really not polished or buttoned up, and it's also not very accurate, right? And there's been some really egregious situations that's come to light. But I'm also one of those that believes that there are going to be some industries that are going to be kind of protected from AI because of the nature of what they do. Legal and healthcare, I think, are going to be two of those areas that are going to be not maybe protected, but there's going to be some guardrails around them because you certainly don't want to give people bad advice and then get sued.
That's right.
That being said, validation of content and validation of what AI tells you is very much a part of the AI experience today, and I don't foresee that changing for a very long time because people are skeptical by nature. And it's easy if you're asking it to add a bunch of math together for you, you're going to probably believe what it spits out as the answer. But if you're asking it to find you a person or to give you advice on a specific challenge you're facing, they'll probably take that result, and then they'll also go down and look in some of the organic results at some of the law firms that have actually written about this topic. So it's weird. I don't really have any fear around AI, and we get this question all the time. It's like, oh, is it going to take over your industry? And at the end of the day, it's pulling content from websites. It's pulling content from places, and learning. And again, law changes on a regular basis. Healthcare changes on a regular basis. So I really think that there's going to be some stopgaps there. But, the AI stuff that's happening is pretty cool. And there's a lot of ways that you can leverage it to to improve what you're doing. And I'm not talking about, and please don't take that as write your content through AI. Do not do that.
Good clarification.
I'm waiting for the court case that comes out that of who owns the content. Cause we've played around with it and we've gotten it to spit out pretty much saying the same thing 4 different times over 20 queries. So, right. That's a pretty serious, percentage of duplicate content, if you will. So you're not getting anything original or new out of it. Right. But the experience, Google could use a shakeup of their user experience, right? Like it's always been the list. And I think that this is a way that it's going to give them an opportunity to play with some other formats and to see what that looks like. I also always wonder if they're going to have a toggle back to original Google, option, right? You don't know. Nobody knows, right? And we play in this space, we've been playing this space for over a decade. Like, I'm not scared or worried about it. And the folks that come to me and like, oh, I don't know if I want to invest in SEO because of AI. It's like, all right, great. So what other channel are you going to start to venture into? Because you're going to start to slide in the rankings. Again, we're working with like, AmLaw 200, NLJ 500 firms. Like, the people ahead of you are still doing this. So are you just okay with keep sliding further and further back in the rankings? And that's not just Google rankings, but like the list rankings. Where are you going to invest your money to be different and to stand out? Because your industry is still doing this and the people that are winning are deploying this in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, Joe, you hit on something there for a moment that I've got to just like grab a massive highlighter and put right over, which is a little bit of the keeping up with the Joneses element when it comes to marketing, especially marketing a law firm. It's, the people ahead of you are doing this. And there's this push and pull between the ante to play the game, so investing in something like SEO, even though it feels like you're behind, it's going to be changing, etc., while also seeking out, like you said, the differentiator. How are you going to stand out? How do you help law firm owners strike that balance between, hey, there's some stuff that we just kind of got to do. It's the ante or it's the table stakes for you to be able to play the game. And then, here's going to be some big swings that we're going to take in order to help you stand out, find different channel platform, et cetera.
Yeah. So we created this kind of foundations SEO program, if you will. And this is more for the firms that are kind of on the cusp of whether or not they want to jump full bore into SEO. Maybe they have never done it before. Maybe they want to, they've had a bad experience and they want to try before they buy. We've created this foundation where we say, hey, listen, we're going to clean up your website. We're going to optimize it for speed. We're going to make sure that all the technical elements are in place. We're going to make sure it's tagged properly. We're going to give you, we have a cool process that we follow. We do content skeletons, which we essentially outline an article or a page for the attorney to go and write. We've been told that it actually cuts down their writing time by 50 to 60%, which is really cool because attorneys don't like to write. They love to redline. They don't like to write. So we do this thing and it's a 90-day sprint. And by the end of it, we've gotten everything kind of buttoned up. And what this does is allows our clients to see how we operate and we do things, right? So that is at the bare bones basic. Like you need to have your site set up for SEO and you need to actually pay some mind and some attention to it. But for the folks that are looking at this as hey, we're going to jump into SEO, we're going to do the longer game, content is always at the center. And I mentioned this before, but it's always at the center of everything we're doing because one of the and this is where I thought you were going with this, was one of the big pushbacks we constantly get from law firms is like, oh, well, these 3 firms have had the top of Google forever. We're never going to beat them. Right. And all it takes is one amazing piece of content to kind of upset the apple cart. And if you've never actually competed in that arena, Google now has yet another website that they can test to see if this content performs better online. So it's not about a legacy thing where you just hold it and you win. People are constantly changing and updating and optimizing their content, and Google's algorithm is rewarding that and testing it and trying things out. And we've seen time and time again where we've entered a market with somebody and within 3 or 4 months, like we actually have them performing top 3. And it's not about the top result anymore. It's about really being on that first scrolling page. Again, you could say that the pages don't exist, then scroll. But if you're looking for a resource, you're not really scrolling much more than once or twice. So, so that's a lot of the advice we give is like, hey, let's start with that content foundational piece, but let's make sure we understand the target that you're trying to go after. Did that answer your question? Because I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit.
Yes. No, the answer was definitely in there for sure, Joe. So if people are interested in connecting with you, learning more about Nine Sale, all that good stuff, where should we send them?
So our website, ninesail.com. So it's the numeral 9, SAIL.com. We're really active on LinkedIn with our webinars. We do a monthly webinar. Any firm of any size, I highly recommend you check one or two of those out. We have some really cool industry leaders, a lot of CMOs from AmLaw 200 firms join us. We have a couple of legacy clients that have jumped on with us that are, maybe in the, 25 to 55 attorney range, but have been really benefiting and growing from what we do. So our webinars are kind of something that we are labor of love. We put a lot into them, and we get a lot out of them from our conversations. But I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. So happy to chat always. But our website is the easiest way to read more about us.
Awesome. Joe, last question for you. It's a little 3-parter, which is, what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Oh man. So, what am I reading? So I've been reading a lot. So I read a lot of fiction.
Awesome.
I'm trying to get myself a little bit more, even balanced with that, because I was listening to a lot of business books and I needed to take a step back. So, Jack Carr, he has the Terminal List, which they came out with on Amazon as a show. He has 6 books in his, I think it's 6 books now in his, story. Highly recommend him. I think he's great. But I'll also tell you the thing I'm reading right now that's a business book is called The Challenger Sale, which is really kind of interesting. Give you the broad strokes of it is like coming up with and figuring out the solutions to the challenges that you are brought, by somebody that might buy from you, and making it almost impossible for them to say no. So that's really cool.
Nice.
Just getting into that. What am I watching right now? Kind of nothing, because all of the shows are on recess right now, but are on break for the summer. But I am a big fan of action dramas. So SEAL Team is my my go-to. I probably rewatched that a dozen times. I think it's fantastic. And what was the third
question? David Boreanaz?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that guy is in, I'm about it.
Nice. So you were a big Bones fan?
He's a good actor. Yeah, I got into that a bit. Yep. And also Max, I always get his name wrong, but Max Theroux, he wrote Fire Country, which is a new show that's on, and he was in SEAL Team.
Nice. And then the last one was, what are you listening to these days?
Well, other than your podcast,
I mean, I love the plug, but yeah, music, podcasts, anything like that.
And it's sad. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but Roy Sexton is the immediate past president. The podcast is called All the World Your Stage. He's the immediate past president of the LMA. He brings on some really incredible people that talk about all different topics, but a lot of them are very applicable to law, which is very interesting. One of his first episodes was he had a guy from the radio on that started his career and built a career in radio. And the stuff that he was spitting out about that industry was directly relatable to law, and I was dumbfounded.
That's
so
awesome.
I've been listening to his stuff when it comes out. Highly recommend. Also, Roy Sexton, for people that don't know him, is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So highly recommend that.
Awesome. Joe, I appreciate your knowledge, insight, wisdom, especially all the tips on the press stuff, something we really haven't gotten into here. Super applicable, super relatable, whether you're a smaller firm trying to grab your first bits and pieces, or you're a larger firm that's looking to turn this into a really part of your operation. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you did today.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.